living with HIV is not a death sentence. Our guest today, in fact, shows us or reminds us that you can actually not just live, but thrive. Welcome to Unscripted as we meet our amazing guest. Thank you for tuning in. And of course, special thanks to our location, that is Takeout Restaurant on Manyani Road in Lavington. Let the show begin. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming here, Doreen, to share your story with us.
Thank you so much, Grace.
Welcome to Unscripted.
I appreciate being here.
So I know I said your name already, but you can introduce yourself to people at home, who you are, and tell them why you're here today.
So my name is Doreen Moraa. I am the founder of an initiative called I Am a Beautiful Story that aims at demystifying HIV-related stigma, as well as just giving hope to people living with HIV like me. I was born with HIV. Almost 30 years now. Like in August, it's going to be exactly 30 years.
Wow.
To me, it is more of a miracle.
It is, isn't it?
It is, because I was born in a time when I didn't know I had HIV. My parents didn't know I had HIV. And
so
now,
how was it discovered?
It was discovered when I had herpes zoster. Herpes zoster is an infection, sort of. So I had herpes zoster on my left eye. And so the doctors looked, all the tests were done and nothing was happening. So they asked my parents, could we test her for HIV? And my parents said, yes, we can. So they tested. And the last thing my parents expected was me turning, an 8-year-old turning HIV positive. That was not part of.
So your upbringing, growing up, you were perfectly okay. You had no complications, no issues, nothing.
No,
from when you were a baby.
Since I was a baby, I was always sick.
I see.
So, but now you see, when growing up, sometimes my parents were told, Amerogwa. They were told that a lot, by the way.
I see.
Because you see, I had so many issues. So they were always like, what is the problem? So
and the doctors are not finding anything.
Exactly. So they were told, this one, she has, it is the witchcraft.
Like
so,
one of them were not well.
No, actually my mom was okay.
As
my parents are a discordant couple, yes. But my mom at that time, she was okay. Like her health, as much as it was up and down, you know, it's not those things that are serious that you look at and you're like, maybe she has HIV. And in the 90s and early 2000s, there was no, HIV was not that big a deal like it is right now, where you tell yourself, let me go. Even when you go like for a random doctor's checkup, they can suggest a HIV test. Yeah. So it was not like that. It was just basically, they were normal.
But was she aware that she had it?
She was not.
Yeah, because it's like it would have crossed her mind. Maybe my child.
Yeah. So my mom knew her HIV status when I was tested.
I see.
So the doctors were like, there's no way an 8-year-old is HIV positive.
Yes.
So maybe the two of you should test. So my dad was tested, he was negative. My mom was tested, she was positive. And then now, of course, she went into denial.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And she knew she was going to die. And then that time, my parents had even been told that I will not reach my 12th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know, there was zero treatment.
Yes.
So they were like, the doctors told them, we would like to give you hope. But we can't, because there is no treatment. So because there is no treatment, the best we can tell you is just, I was now attached to Nyumbani Children's Home. So they suggested that I can go live there, because that time Nyumbani was dealing specifically with children living with HIV. So I can go live there, maybe be getting the antibiotics, the Septrin, but nothing much. There was basically no hope. So my parents were like, no, we know our daughter is going to die, but we would rather she dies at home.
Oh, wow.
So my mom
accepted.
But there was no option. Have you ever been given zero options? Now this is like, I am 8, they've been given till I'm 12. So that is like 4 years. So they're like, yeah, let us just go home. So we went home. The first thing, I got baptized. And because my mom, they just made peace with the fact that I might die. So I got baptized. I started going to Nyumbani. I'll go there like for the weekends. They will give us the Septrin, multivitamin. Sometimes they would give us the food supplements. So that was it until now 2005.
What happened?
Then my mom got sick, very sick. She was now in ICU, and everybody knew she was not going to make it. So her HIV had progressed to AIDS, and now at this point it was a matter of God and her. And now God came through, and she woke up, and finally she now took me to hospital.
Okay, so
up
she
until,
made it through.
Yeah, she made it through.
And she's alive to date.
She is alive to date.
Look at God.
So up until 2005, I did not know that I had HIV.
Oh.
Yeah, nobody ever told me that I had HIV. So
how old were you at this point?
I was 13.
Oh, so you had no idea? They didn't
None
tell you?
at all. I was always sick, but I did not know that I had HIV.
And you have other siblings?
Yeah, I have.
Older or younger?
2 older, 1 younger.
Did they know?
Yeah, everybody around me knew I had HIV except for me.
No.
Yeah. So that was the weirdest part, because everybody knew I had HIV. But I did not know that I had HIV. So when I asked why am I always in hospital, why am I always taking these drugs, my parents will tell me, you're always in hospital because you have a heart condition. Sometimes they will tell me you have skin cancer and you will get better by the time you're 12. So I was really waiting to be 12 and stop this medication thing. Yeah.
Oh, no.
So then
when that didn't happen, what happened?
Now that did not happen until now I was 13, and now my mom took me to hospital, and the doctor told me, Doreen, I'm not sure whether you will understand what I'm going to tell you, but you were born with HIV. You're HIV positive, and you will have to take treatment for the rest of your life.
Did you understand what that meant? What HIV was? What treatment for the rest of your life meant for you? Did you comprehend at that age?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I did not. Actually, I felt like, to me, because I never used to like the Septrin pill, it was too huge. So I was like, finally I'm stopping to take that Septrin.
Yeah.
And then the pediatric ARVs that time were very, as much as they were many, they were very colorful and smaller. So I loved that. And also now, where we used to live, we will travel all the way to Kericho to take our treatment. So we were not going to the nearby clinics because I think of stigma. Because way back when when I was sick and my mom told everyone that I had HIV, after my brother died, because my brother died due to AIDS-related complications, I went to live with a few relatives. Now, during the planning of the burial and what. Then, when I was living with them, they would disinfect my utensils. They will disinfect my clothes. So I never understood what was happening.
You were treated differently.
Exactly. I never knew. So now when I knew about it, that I had HIV, then it hit me like,
made sense.
Oh, so did they think I was going to infect them or something? So it never really made sense to me. So now when...
How did you deal with that, if I could call it, stigma of people, yes, being afraid if I close or if I touch your things, I can get infected. How have you dealt with that over the years?
Over the years, now I stopped going to my relatives' houses.
Really?
For that, yes. Because I wouldn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And even though we are in 2022, I still always have reservations because the misconceptions are still there. So with that, I just always like, let's meet somewhere, say hi, and that is it. But the whole issue of interaction really kind of stopped.
Okay.
And because my mom had a sister who has a healthcare worker who was actually supposed to be our support system, but was not our support system at that time.
Okay. How so?
She was the one person who was telling everyone we have HIV. And you see, with that, it makes you uncomfortable because the family was supposed to be the support system. And then at this particular moment, it's not.
Okay.
So we basically just kind of cut ourselves off. And
you lived a quiet private life.
Exactly.
As
so if there's even one time she came to a town where we used to live and told people, my sister and her daughter, they have HIV, and we had to relocate. Because of that. That is even why we had to take treatment from a clinic where nobody would know us.
Really?
Like the chances of meeting your neighbor or your friend are very little. Okay. So when I started ARVs, to me it was for the travel, for the food, because my mom used to buy me food after our clinic, and now for
so it felt like a treat.
Exactly.
I see.
So now.
But how was it? I'm curious. You said you have other siblings.
Yeah.
But you're the only one who was infected with HIV.
Exactly.
How did that affect you or your relationship with your siblings?
I don't know.
You don't know
Because I think they accepted me, and then at some point maybe it became a little bit overwhelming for them.
Really?
Because they used to tell to my parents that they love me more than they love them. But you see, the attention shifted.
Of
the
course.
minute my
I know
parents
it's hard
were
to
told,
understand, but I get it.
exactly.
Yeah.
The minute my parents were told she might not make it to her 12th birthday, the attention
All the
just
attention
shifted.
went to
Like,
you.
yeah. So they felt like I was overloved than they were. But I don't think that was it. I just think my parents were trying to
make the most of
the moments that I was here.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and you see, my brother died at a very young age because he was 3.
I see.
So I think probably that was what they were trying to process. So with them, I think over the years they just learned to accept and love me. The last one is the one who has never had any issues. But the first 2 have always been like, no, but they love you more than they loved us. So
it's a journey.
It's a journey, exactly. Yeah.
And as we finish this part, how has it been, the reality of having to take medication every single day? Did you ever struggle or battle with, I'm tired, today I don't want to do this? How has it been like for you?
The reality of taking ARVs is hard. And it's been 17 years and it does not get easier. And at some point I stopped taking them because I thought I was cured of HIV.
Okay. What made you think so?
Well, I saw the story of Babu Ololiondo on TV. So Babu was a self-proclaimed healer, and he said he can heal every disease. So I convinced my mom, and we went all the way to Tanzania. There was a huge queue of people waiting also for their own
healing
cure. Yeah. So there was so many people, and I think also the numbers made us believe that maybe this is it. Maybe he really does have a cure. So we took the drug. It was like a herbal cap. So we took it and we came back, and I stopped taking my treatment for 2 years after that.
2 years?
Yeah.
So for 2 years you were taking the herbal, or it was a one-time thing?
No, it was a one-time thing.
Then
it
you
was
figured,
exactly.
I'm fine. 2 years?
2 years.
How did that set you back health-wise?
Health-wise, of course, my viral load went up.
I'm sure.
The first time it went up, it was 70,000 copies. A normal viral load when you are on treatment is supposed to be anything below 1,000 or 500 or 0.
Okay.
In fact, 0 shows you're doing very well on treatment.
But yours went to
70,000.
What?
Yeah, so the doctors started, like now I'm in hospital and the doctors are now calling each other. Now I knew something is wrong. And they told me, Doreen, have you been taking a treatment? And I'm like, yes, every day. So they were like, if you're taking treatment, there's no way you can have this kind of viral load. It's not making sense. So I told them, maybe it's the time. And they told me, or maybe your treatment is just failing.
But you lied. You're not taking the
Of course I lied.
Okay. On that note, let's take a short break.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Doreen, before the break, you were just highlighting what it was like growing up with HIV. Yeah. When did you decide to live out publicly, and what led to that decision?
I was doing my attachment.
Okay.
You're
already working at this point?
Yeah, I did community development, went for my attachment at the Teacher Service Commission, and now we used to go out because we were working in the wellness unit, so we used to go out to like universities and colleges and test. Yeah. So that is now when we started now telling people, come get tested. Okay. So nobody wanted to get tested for HIV. And I would be like, what is happening? Like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there are no people coming. So my boss knew that I had HIV. So she told me, maybe you should tell them your story, tell them you've lived with HIV for this long. And I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that, because the first stigma I faced was from my own family. So I did not want to face stigma from people who did not even know me. So I basically just said no. But she told me, think about it, come back, and just, it will create an impact, and it will make people want to know why the HIV status. Yeah. So one time I was just reading the Daily Nation, and then I came across a story. And I was like, maybe I shall just send an email to this editor.
Really?
When I send the email to the editor, it is more of like when you're just talking to somebody who you don't know, which is easier, and you're not hoping for a response from them.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I sent the email.
What was the email? And what did
It was
you
just
read?
my story.
Oh,
I just told her, but because the whole time up until that moment, I had never told anyone my story. So nobody knew I was living with HIV. It was just me taking drugs. That was it.
Yeah.
So when I sent the email, then she responded. So I reached home and then I see an email coming in, and I'm like, Doreen, I like your story. I want us to do an interview. And I'm like, no. I don't think this is what I wanted.
That's not what you wanted.
No, I was sort of just like talking to
Letting
somebody
it out.
who doesn't know me, and
Yeah.
that was supposed to be it. So now I had to call my mom because, you know, she's also part of the story. So I had to call her. And she was like, okay, there's no problem. You go ahead and do the interview.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, wow. So I did the interview. But now when my dad heard about it, he was not happy. He was like, no, you should not tell anybody that you have HIV, because that is also what the doctor told me. When I was first told that I have HIV,
He said, don't
I
tell
was
anyone.
told, don't tell anyone you have HIV.
Why?
So because of
save
the
yourself from
stigma,
stigma?
yeah, because you know the stigma, the misconceptions lead to the stigma. So you never know how somebody is going to treat you. You never know how they're going to look at you after they know
And
that you're not.
sometimes the stigma can affect your state.
Exactly.
And you end up getting worse, isn't it?
Yeah. So for that reason, I was so like, I wasn't ready for it. So she told me it's going to go on print, and then we'll see. Then later on, she told me, no, it's going to be on digital, so don't worry. So that time, social media was not as huge as it is now. And I was like, fine, nobody's going to know.
But you're surprised?
And then people started tagging me on the comment section.
Yeah.
And by that time, nobody on social media knew that I had HIV. So they were like, these people, they are defaming your name. You don't have HIV. What is happening? So now I panicked and I deactivated my Facebook account. I was like, I don't think this is what I wanted to happen. I don't think this is how I figured it out. But one guy stood out because I'd left my email at the very end of the story. So one guy sent me an email and told me how he had been taking ARVs from the boot of his car for 5 years. So nobody knew, his wife didn't know, his children, nobody. Just him every evening.
Just him goes to the car, takes his
ARVs, goes straight to bed and tells them, wake me up when supper is ready.
You're kidding.
Yeah, so I was like, wow. And he was not the only person living with HIV alone.
So this brought attention to those living with HIV.
Exactly.
They reached out to you.
They reached out to me. So now they were
Okay.
telling me it's just me and my doctor, nobody else knows. And now I was like,
What did that do
this
to
is
you?
a lifelong health condition.
It is.
And it requires some form of support system at some point. You can't live with it alone, because the more you live with it alone, the more it weighs you down.
Yeah.
Because it's basically something that affects you psychosocially. So I was very concerned. And now I realize that we have a bigger problem than I used to think we had, because I used to think the problem is treatment. As long as we're all on treatment, that is it, we're all good. But now the problem was
There's still stigma.
the stigma, from the self-stigma to the societal stigma. Now I now felt like maybe I should just talk about it publicly. Maybe I should let other people know that there is another person living with HIV like you. It's not just you. And maybe you have not yet come out publicly to live with it, but at least Doreen will always be there, like to give you the strength to go on, because I have been through everything.
Okay.
So most of the people I responded. The emails were over 1,000, so I did not respond to all of them. And then
This is from people experiencing the same?
experiencing the same, living with relatives who have the same, some with children who they are now guardians to, and it was so much. And it made me feel, you know, way back when we used to have the psychosocial support groups, it was easier, because at least you would know that I have other people with me. Now, nowadays, with the psychosocial support groups dying, we really don't have much of a support group where you know that this person has HIV, this one has HIV, they're not going to judge me. Nowadays, you're just living in, even with families who you don't want them to know that you have HIV.
So what did you decide to do with that?
So I decided to now create I Am a Beautiful Story.
That's That's how it was formed.
That is how it was formed, which is now the initiative, in that I wanted people to see that there is a face behind the virus, that we need to end stigma related to HIV, because that is one of the problems we have when it comes to the HIV response, and also to encourage other people to take their treatment, because I take my treatment almost every other day on social media, and it's just basically that reminder
that
you
take it on social media.
Sorry?
You take your treatment? What do you
sometimes mean? Sometimes I just take the pill and I post it and tell people it's our time, it's time, take your ARVs. Because taking treatment every day is hard.
It is.
So sometimes you will get tired. And getting tired doesn't mean the virus is tired. It's still there, it's still in your body. So it does not discriminate that today you're having a bad day, today you're tired, today you don't feel like. It always requires you to take the virus, so the ARV, so that you can control it. So that is how now I started I Am a Beautiful Story, and I share my story across on my social media platforms, and basically just get to encourage other people that we are greater than this virus.
I see.
Yeah.
What has the feedback been like?
Interesting.
Really? Right.
Yeah.
You say so.
Some people are okay, actually. Some of them actually have even started treatment, and they tell me, hey Doreen, I want to start treatment. Where do I go to? So some of them, I refer to them to the facilities around where they are.
Yeah.
Some of them, even when it comes to prevention, because I also use my story as a tool for HIV prevention.
Great.
Because one of the things is we need to end the new HIV infections.
Got it.
And it is possible to end new HIV infections, but also now there's a program called Prevention with Positives. So I basically just tell them, use these particular HIV prevention methods that are available, because HIV is very preventable. Okay. So there is that as well. So now there's some who are open to my status and they're okay and they follow me religiously. There's some who are like, no, you don't look like you have HIV.
Or they just don't believe the
story.
They
just don't believe that I have HIV.
You're supposed to look a certain way, act a certain way.
Exactly. You know, sometimes I understand where they're coming from, because you remember when HIV was like at its peak, there were those billboards and what, and exactly, and they were written AIDS kills.
Yes.
So everybody expects people living with HIV that is how we're supposed to look like. But over the years, there's now treatment. We are now just living our best lives.
Living our best lives. As we finish this part, maybe we can talk about, it's 2022.
Yeah.
There are still misconceptions about HIV. What have you heard? What has been the most ridiculous? Or what is still there, and how can we sort of debunk it today?
So there are some misconceptions, some such as the fact that if you are living with HIV, you're supposed now to have a particular look.
Like you just said.
Like I just said. There's some who say that after taking treatment for so long, you end up becoming HIV negative, of which it does not work like that. Some people say that people with the blood group O do not get HIV.
Really? Never heard that one.
Yeah, for some reason people believe that people who have a blood group O, they don't have HIV. They can't get HIV, but they can because I am blood group O.
So am I.
That's
I'm like interesting.
Yeah, so people also, now we have moved from the point where people used to think that shaking hands, sharing cups and utensils brings around HIV.
Okay. That has stopped. So that kind of stigma is not there anymore.
It's not there, yeah. Good. Now we have a popular belief of a person called a HIV carrier.
Yes, tell us about that.
There is nothing like a HIV carrier.
I see.
You are either HIV positive or HIV negative. So there is, yes, the 10% population in the world that cannot get HIV, but they're not even in Africa. So, so basically, there is nothing like a carrier. You can either be HIV positive or HIV negative. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. I hope you got that and took some notes. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I have to ask, because we're debunking a lot and you're educating us today.
Yeah.
What's your take on the new, it's been a trending story, I've been seeing it a lot of late, the new cure drug for HIV. What's your take on that?
My take on that is still 41 years later with HIV in the world, we don't have a cure.
We don't.
we do
So
not.
there is no such thing as a cure?
There is nothing as a cure.
What does it do instead?
So most of these people have some types of cancers. The latest one had leukemia. The London patient had lymphoma. The Berlin patient, I have forgotten the type of cancer he had. So these people go through a stem cell transplant or a bone marrow transplant. And they have the 10% of people who cannot get HIV happen to be their donors for the bone marrow transplant. So when it comes into their bodies, it basically kind of puts the HIV under some sort of recession or something.
Remission, yeah.
So remission, so in that the HIV does not.
It looks like it's not there.
It looks like it's not there,
okay.
but it's not doing anything. Like it's not mutating. It's not doing nothing. It's just quiet.
Okay.
So that is why we cannot declare it as a cure. It's just like a potential way of reducing the HIV
effects of HIV
on
your
body, but it has nothing to do with the cure. So far there is no cure at this particular moment.
So it's nothing to be hopeful or celebrate about?
It is something to be hopeful about, and also something to celebrate about, because since COVID came, the HIV response kind of took a backseat. So when we see such kind of things, we are happy that we have not been the forgotten pandemic.
In fact, how were you during the pandemic? Were you nervous? Were you...
Yeah, we were nervous.
Yeah.
I was nervous personally because every news headline was people living with HIV are leading the group in people who might get COVID, diabetics, all that. And then you now look at, you're like now worried because this is a new pandemic. And you're like, I have survived one pandemic and then there's another one that can potentially harm me. So a lot of people living with HIV, though some people living with HIV died due to COVID.
They did.
But we have been resilient.
You have been.
Yeah.
You have been. I have to ask, you have been part of so many global initiatives and bodies that help either create awareness or end stigma.
Yeah.
What led to that decision and what has the impact been for you?
I've been part and still am part of lots of global initiatives.
You have. Very commendable, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like mostly it's just them recognizing my work and just celebrating the fact that I have chosen to be resilient despite my HIV status. And they want a voice that, despite the fact that you're living with HIV, we want to hear what can we do better in the HIV response? How can we end the inequalities related to HIV? How can we view HIV from a gender perspective, like, because 50% of the population living with HIV are women. So how do we end that? Like, how do we ensure that all of this actually turns out to be a positive thing for people living with HIV, in that they do not feel left behind? Because in so many spaces, people living with HIV were left behind for so long. But now, finding myself in those spaces sometimes are like, okay.
Surreal moments. You mentioned they engage you because of your resilience. Where do you get that resilience from? What motivates you, Doreen?
Sometimes I feel it's the fact that I reached a point of acceptance with my HIV status. A lot of people struggle with acceptance because some days you are like, okay, this thing doesn't define me and all that. And then some days they're just like, no, this is not it, I'm tired. So when I started, I went through it all. I stopped taking medication. I denied that I'm positive. I assumed I was cured. And with all of those, by the time I was reaching the point of acceptance, I looked at myself and felt like this HIV is not going away. I have lived with it since I was born. So how do I change the narrative of people living with HIV being sad, being hopeless, being helpless? How do I change that and become this person who is greater than the virus? And how do I just become, I am just a host to this virus, right? But why am I allowing the virus to win when I am the host? Because ideally hosts make the rules. So that is actually why I decided to just wake up and ensure that every day I live a life beyond my diagnosis.
That's amazing. I like how you said the host makes the rules. So you make the rules.
You
tell your body how to behave.
Exactly.
So I want you to speak to someone at home who is at that point where they're either in denial or they're tired. They're tired of the ARVs every day, or they're tired of being sick. And they've just lost hope. What can you tell them today?
So I can tell them, you are not your diagnosis. You're more than your diagnosis. HIV is a very tiny virus. Don't give it power. You have the power to live a life beyond your HIV status. Don't let it define you. Don't let it weigh you down, because at the end of the day, there is a beautiful life beyond HIV.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm curious to know, how has your status affected your life socially? Friends or relationships? How has that played a role or played out?
So my friends, they were shocked, most of them, because some of them did not know that I had HIV.
Did that change their
no,
French? Oh, good.
No, they actually think I am a celebrity for some
reason. You are. That's great.
But for my family members, some of them were against it. Some of them, they just, right now, they normalized going with the flow.
Okay.
At this point, I think we're all good. For relationships, it is hard.
I'm sure.
It's not only hard for me, it's hard for everybody living with HIV. Yes. Because sometimes people will discriminate you according to the fact that you're living with HIV, and they're looking at you like, you are going to infect me with HIV, and we are not doing that. Yeah. So at some point, I once disclosed, somebody left me somewhere along Ngong Road.
On the road?
Yeah, like he just told me, I have some work to do at the office, so see, we shall talk.
In bus?
Bus.
You never saw them again?
I never saw them again.
I'm sorry.
You know, the thing is, some people just don't believe. Even when I see that my mom and my parents are a discordant couple,
exactly.
They don't believe. And the fact that I've never really been in a relationship with a person who is HIV positive, I think it always acts like a barrier sometimes. In that somebody looks at me like, are you sure you're not going to infect me? Because right now we have...
So it's hard to oversee that.
Exactly.
Still.
A lot of people look at the HIV before the Doreen. So right now, while we have the new scientific approach of U equals U, or undetectable equals untransmittable, where if my viral load is below 50 copies, I am not able to transmit it to my partner sexually.
And it's your responsibility to ensure it stays there?
Yes,
by taking
ARVs, yes.
I see.
But now, a lot of people still don't believe in that, because our response in HIV has always been, if you're living with HIV, you are going to infect your partner.
Yeah.
So with that...
We still don't have that understanding
We still don't have that understanding. We have not yet grasped. It's a whole new concept. So I think it's taking time to be understood by people. Okay. But I feel like it's going to change the narrative around HIV. And also around relationships and for people who are dating. Because for me, relationships have been hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, we keep going. However, currently I'm dating, so...
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So do you wish to have a family someday?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We leave that in God's hands.
We leave that in God's hands.
As we finish,
yeah.
I'm curious, today with, you said 17 years of taking ARVs.
Yeah.
And how many years? Well, since you were born.
Since I was born, yeah.
What are you most grateful for today, Doreen?
Today, I am most grateful for life.
Amen.
That is why each and every one of my birthdays, I celebrate life.
Good.
Because...
You don't take it for granted?
I do not take it for granted. Yeah. Because I was literally handed a death sentence. I was told you won't live to see your 12th birthday. Here I am now, like I have defied so many years after that. Yeah. So sometimes you look at it, I thank God for life. Okay. I thank God for the fact that it's now almost 3 decades.
Imagine.
Since that sentence, like you look at it and you're like, my parents had given up. They were ready. You know, I was baptized, the whole thing. But here I am now. I think even them, when they look at me sometimes, they don't believe that I am alive to this particular moment. Yeah, so from that point to now, I am always grateful for life, for the fact that I get to wake up every day and I get to just take my treatment. Yeah. And now we have treatment, you know. That time we did not have treatment. So we were basically sent home with love and hope. Go home, love your daughter. We are hoping she might make it beyond 12, but we are giving her 12 maximum from our perspective. Yeah. But God wakes me up every day. Amen. So with that, actually I just think I'm grateful for life. Amen. Every year that God I turn around the sun.
Amen.
Yeah.
And that's how we should all live.
That is actually
whether
how
you're
we
healthy
should
or
all
not,
live.
be grateful to be alive every day.
Exactly.
Lastly, what would you like to be remembered for?
One of the things I'd like to be remembered for is championing to end HIV-related stigma. I would really like to leave an impact in the world for that. Like, you know, Assunta Wagura, who was the first woman to come out publicly and say she has HIV in a time when HIV was literally a death sentence. I want to leave such a footprint in the world that I championed to end HIV-related stigma, that people living with HIV are not looked upon as just the virus, but we look at them from a human perspective. Because the H in HIV stands for human. Let us look at the human, leave the virus alone. Okay. Because at the end of the day, this is a beautiful and an amazing person, and we need to see them from that perspective.
I am beautiful.
Exactly. You are a beautiful story.
You are a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Isn't her story beautiful? Isn't she beautiful? Thank you for sharing your story with us.
I appreciate it.
We thank you and we celebrate you today. And we wish you all the very best.
I appreciate that.
Fantastic. And to you at home, thank you for watching. Do keep in touch, reach out to us. And yeah, we appreciate you. Have yourselves a lovely week. Take care of yourself. God bless you. And of course, special thanks to our lovely location, that is Takeout on Manyani Road here in Lavington. Next time you're in the area, come by and let's have some tea, okay? All right, bye.